So give me 2 seconds for that. All right, wonderful. So yeah, thank you all for joining. I'm just going to share my screen so that you can start to go through the session with me. It'll come up in just a moment. You should be able to see that now. So today's webinar is all about upward feedback. And so I'm going to take you through a bunch of different ways in which we can do that upward feedback. I'm Naomi, for those who haven't met me yet, but I think everyone on this session has. So, and we've got Focus HR. We're a small business-to-business consultancy. We do people, leadership and strategy work with our wonderful clients who are mainly small to medium enterprises. One of the things that we do is help businesses with this upward feedback concept in terms of how do they actually get their people talking to them. And it's interesting, just opening the door isn't actually always enough. It's amazing the amount of managers and CEOs I talk to who say, you know, look, I tell my people I've got an open door policy, but they still don't come and talk to me. Why aren't people coming and giving me feedback or telling me when there's a concern or letting me know when things are good? And I think that the lesson for me in that is we actually have to be quite conscientious and purposeful about seeking feedback and seeking feedback about the things that we really want to learn on. So the stuff I'm going to go through today is focused around where to think are really good touch points that you can gather that feedback. If you've got questions as I go through, please feel free to pop yourself off of mute and ask. Happy to answer any as we go. So this concept of retention, I've jumped from feedback to retention. I will explain why and how, but retention is just one of the buzzwords out there at the moment. We know that it is so hard to find good people right now, which means that when you do find them, you want to make sure that you keep them on board. You know, if we have high turnover, it's expensive for our business. We lose knowledge, we lose skills, productivity, profitability goes down, all of that kind of thing. So retention is a really key thing that we've got to focus on when it comes to people management, full stop. So in terms of how feedback then contributes to that, the way that we see it is if you want to retain good people, you need to understand if people are leaving, why they're leaving. And then from there, you can look at developing strategies on, well, how do I actually get them to stay? And in general, people will prioritise things like family and work-life balance, sense of community within the team, ability to work autonomously, ability to have flexibility. You know, those are the sorts of things that people will value when it comes to considering whether they're going to stay or go. And studies have also shown that employees will stay with companies for a number of reasons. It'll be fair pay, their colleagues, winning cultures, opportunity for growth, a leader they admire. But it's really important to understand specifically what drives and engages your people and to realise that every single person is different. A lot of businesses have a bit of a one-size-fits-all approach to employee benefits and those sorts of things where that's fine, but you also need to have stuff that really acknowledges the individual. And you don't know your individual until you've received feedback from them. So when we foster that culture and that environment where our people are comfortable coming to us with feedback and comfortable saying, hey, I really enjoyed this, or I'd like this, or, you know, this didn't work so well for me, and we're able to sort of tic-tac on that stuff, we are increasing our chances of keeping those people on board because we're able to do something with it. So in terms of what you can do to better understand what's important to individual employees, I think you can have discussions, and this can be in a number of ways. It can be through the induction and onboarding process, asking them questions. You can also build this stuff into your performance appraisals. We actually use a model that we've called the 6 coaching conversations. So every single month we have a different conversation and we bring some of these into it so that we're getting feedback constantly. But you would talk to them about things like, what do they, I've missed a word there, what do they like and dislike about their role? Give us feedback on your take on your position. What do you see as your top strengths? We're asking, it's not just us giving them feedback on how they are performing and what we see. We want them to let us know what they think their top strengths are and how we can best utilize that. What things would they like to learn or experience? You know, this is where we can really help them with development if we understand where they want to get exposure. What, if anything, would they change about the job, the team, the company? We need to keep in mind that our questions that we ask our people need to be easy for them to answer. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I mean it as in, if we ask too big questions or too broad questions or use too many HRE terms, we will lose and people won't necessarily understand what it is that we're trying to get from them. Whereas if I were to say to someone, hey, tell me one thing that you'd really like to change about your job, they can answer that pretty easily normally. You know, what's one thing that you would change about the team? Again, really easy for them to answer. So we're looking for ways to ask them questions that they can give us simple answers to. What things satisfy them, what motivates them, what makes them want to come to work. We need to understand how they tick as individuals. You know, again, if we take that approach of, oh, we will do we'll do a productivity bonus, or we will do a bonus for completing our checklists, and that applies to absolutely everyone. That can be good, but we might be missing the fact of this person is driven by, you know, they might be competitive. They're driven by really positive competition within the team. Another person might be driven by an opportunity to constantly learn. Another person might be driven by, actually, I just want a really good job that gives me flexibility to go home. We need to know that about our people. We can ask what forms of recognition they most appreciate. And I think this is really important because our personality types differ. If you do any work around personality types, you'll know that, you know, there are certain styles, like your C-style personalities in the DISC model, who do not want public recognition. You know, for them, if anything, it's a quiet word on the side or an email. Whereas there are other people who absolutely want to get up on that stage and get the round of applause at an awards ceremony. And then what talent, skills and abilities could they make more use of? It's another really useful question, because you don't always, particularly when someone starts with you, you don't know all of their skill sets. So actually asking them, hey, you know, tell us what aren't we yet tapping into? What skills and abilities or, you know, hidden superpowers do you have that we could actually tap into? Because normally they will enjoy doing that stuff. So we've got a bunch of questions we can ask to help us to understand the individual and get better at retention. And I'd be encouraging you to work these sorts of questions into your induction check-ins, your performance appraisals, all of those sorts of spaces when you can. With getting that feedback happening, one of the things I think we need to be aware of is that not everyone's comfortable giving feedback. And particularly upward feedback. That can be a bit of a scary thing to do. You know, how do I go and tell my boss that, you know, I think this could be better, or that I think, you know, I didn't appreciate something that happened in a team meeting. Like that can be a really uncomfortable place for people to be. So I really encourage businesses, if they genuinely want feedback, if this is a genuine thing, then embed that really, really early. So we want to make sure that we are creating a culture and creating a safe environment early on. A big part of that is what you do with, how you react to and what you do with the feedback that they give you when they come to you. So in terms of the practicalities of setting that feedback loop up early, we can do things like implementing steps within the onboarding process to do it. So during your onboarding, perfect time to get that culture groundwork laid, and your openness to receive and being proactive with getting feedback from people is going to give them a really clear indication of being open to it. So we can gain it through the onboarding process. We should be taking the time to ask for feedback from our new people, ask them about how have they found the onboarding process. Are there things that we have missed? Are there things, you know, after a couple of weeks that they go, gosh, I wish someone had told me that at the start? Are there areas of it that they found overwhelming or boring, or that they couldn't understand, or that went too quick? asking them some really good questions around that onboarding process, because it's something that they've just been through. They've just spent, a week or so going through that process with you. It's fresh in their mind. It's really valuable feedback for you anyway, in terms of improving that process as you're doing it. And it means that it's fairly comfortable for them to give you some feedback because it is so fresh in their mind. I would also be asking them about what their recruitment experience is, because that's something you really want to learn from. Again, particularly in this environment, we want to understand what their perceptions were throughout the recruitment process. What made them apply for the role? Was it the ad? What was it? Was it company reputation? Really good to get a feel for that, because obviously whatever you've done that attracted them, you want to know so that you can repeat it. So asking them about how was their experience at each stage. What did they think of the interview? If they did testing, what did they think of that? Did they have any feedback on how we communicated with them? How long it took us to go through stuff with them? So I'd be asking them on that. And then throughout your onboarding, I also have, and we've got a template that we use, which is, a manager's check-in for sort of 1 week, 1 month, etc. And we will ask things too, like, did we make any promises during the recruitment phase that we haven't delivered to you? And I think that's a really crucial question, because it can inadvertently happen where during recruitment you've gone, yeah, no worries. Look, what we'll do is we'll organise a fuel card for you, or whatever it happens to have been that you've sort of promised during recruitment. And then work gets in the way and life gets busy and you forget to do it. It's not necessarily an intentional thing. But if we actually ask those people, a couple of weeks in, hey, is there anything that we've missed? Is there anything we said we would do during the recruitment process that we haven't yet delivered on? It gives them the opportunity to sort of flag that without feeling uncomfortable. It also gives you the opportunity, if they've gotten any kind of misperception during the recruitment process, to clarify that. So we ask about that. We ask how they've gone with feeling welcomed in the team. We ask about whether or not the job is meeting their expectations, because during recruitment, we will talk to them about what the role involves, what level of responsibility it has, all of that kind of stuff. And we will also talk to them about our company, what sort of a culture we've got, what sort of an environment, etc. I really like asking people, has it actually met your expectations? Is what you are experiencing now that you're on board, is that actually a true reflection of what we told you it was going to be? Because if it's not, then again, we need to know that. We need that feedback. I really like asking people, do you feel like you've made the right choice in coming across? It's a good teller, and if not, why not? So that we can actually work on that. And I covered the reasons for joining the company at the start. So you can see that these questions, when you purposely go and sit down with someone and ask them questions around this stuff, you are showing them that you want their thoughts and you want their ideas, and you're doing this really early. This is the first, couple of weeks to a month of their employment. When you absorb what they tell you, when you listen and problem solve on stuff with them, when you don't react defensively or angrily or anything like that, all of that embeds that sense of, hey, this is a company where I can give feedback. After that, of course, you've got your ongoing conversations, and there's plenty of opportunities to have these. One of the things that we encourage businesses to do is what we call stay interviews. We all do these exit interviews, or a lot of businesses do, where once someone has left, we say, all right, tell us why and what could we have done better, etc. I love the idea of a stay interview. So you can actually use those throughout to understand, why are they still with you? What is it that satisfies them? What is it that engages them? So this is something you might do every sort of 6 to 12 months with your people. And so you're asking questions like, has your perception of us as an employer changed since you went through the recruitment process? So this might be 6, 12 months down the track. If so, how? Does the role meet with your expectations? What are your career goals now? How supported do you feel in achieving those career goals? Has there been any barriers to doing that here? Those career goals and barriers, I think, are really important, because we know that in today's environment, It is rare to have long-term employees. I think the national average tenure is something like 2.3 years, and it's even lower for the younger generation. So we know that it's long tenure is not necessarily what we're going to get, but if we are finding out from them, what are your career goals, how can I support you, what are the barriers, we either A, have a greater likelihood of being able to keep them because we can work with them on their progression and keep them moving within the company, or we're actually having really great open, transparent conversations around what they want to do next and when that might be. And as a business, it means that you will already have some insight around, right, I know that this person is likely to be here for 18 months, or, that we've started to have that they might have been with you for a few years, you're having this conversation and you get to know that actually probably in the next 6 to 12 months, they've outgrown their role and they're looking for something else. So allows you to plan a lot better when you can have those sorts of open conversations. I love the 1 to 10 rating on how you would rate your job satisfaction. 1 being it's really hard to get up and come to work, and 10 being can't wait to get started each day. Ask them what makes a great day at work. What do you like about your job? Do you feel that your knowledge and skills are being properly utilised? And if not, what else do you want to take on? Again, ask the question around how they like to be recognised. What do you want to achieve in your work this year can be a really useful question. And is there anything you'd like to change about your job? So those sorts of questions can keep reappearing, and you don't have to ask that full list. It might be, every quarter if you catch up with them on something that you might have a handful of questions that you'll ask them. It's all building that knowledge of your people and encouraging them to give you some feedback. The other conversation that I love, I am a huge advocate of this. I can't actually remember who came up with it, not me. It's called the start, stop, keep conversation. And it is so simple. I said earlier about needing to have questions that employees can really easily answer. I have found this without fail to give me a piece of gold every time I do it. Really simple 3 questions. What's one thing we need to start doing? What's one thing we need to stop doing? What's one thing we need to keep doing? And you can ask that at any level. It might be in relation to someone's job that you ask it. It might be in relation to the team or the department, or it could be for the company as a whole. Really simple. Now, each person isn't necessarily going to give you an answer to each of those. Some people will go, oh, look, I can't think of anything we need to stop doing, but they can normally give you an answer to at least one, ideally 2. And I have found some brilliant ideas come out of having these conversations. I actually wrap these in. So we do what we call IHOPs, internal hour of power, which I didn't know. I'd never heard of IHOPs, the International House of Pancakes, even though pancakes is one of my favourite foods in the whole world. I hadn't actually heard of the IHOP. I labelled this as internal hour of power, and then everyone got excited that I was taking them somewhere that had pancakes. But what we do is every single month, I take each of our Focus HR team out to lunch, one-on-one. And we, in that session, it's just a really good opportunity to touch base, catch up. I will also, I use one of the coaching conversations, and then I ask these questions normally. And I find without fail, I will get something from that I'll go, yeah, actually, that is a really good idea. We need to start doing that, or we need to stop doing that. And so we're always responding to that. So really simple, really effective. If you're finding that you've got someone who is a bit dissatisfied or a bit disengaged, these sorts of questions can really start the conversation flowing. I need a coffee. Hang on. All right. So the other thing you can do on a more formal level is your people perception surveys. And when you come to that place of wanting to measure your employee engagement, surveys are a really powerful solution. We like to use them quite strategically to look into employee insights that are going to help us around that talent retention, getting the best performance out of them, nurturing them, checking in on our company culture, that sort of thing. So key benefits to running surveys, they do measure your level of employee engagement, and then what are the key drivers of that engagement so that we can make sure we're tapping into that. And you do want to run these regularly so that you are kind of checking in on the pulse of what that engagement level is like. They also give employees a voice and a channel to give open feedback, and often on topics that they might not otherwise have thought to give you feedback on. Really well designed surveys capture feedback, ideas, and insights that otherwise might be untapped because you're asking questions about specific areas that you'd like to find out about. They also can increase employee motivation because when an employee feels like their opinion is valued and it matters and the business responds, so they know it's actually being listened to, that's when you can get a much higher level of engagement from your people. Research also shows that satisfied, motivated employees are going to be more productive. So the flow-on effect from that engagement is productivity. It can also be things like better customer satisfaction, better business performance, that sort of thing. Because obviously, if your people are happier and their issues and concerns are being dealt with, they are going to be a better face of your company as well. And the last one is knowledge is power. So when we are having touch bases, when we are having conversations, but also when we're doing surveys and getting real data, it helps us to know hotspots. It can also tell us what our blind spots are. If we think we might be doing something really well, but our employees are going, nah, not so much, we get some insight around what we can do to improve. So, we get to understand where the level of engagement is at. We get to understand what their thoughts are on our vision. What's the morale of the team like? All of those sorts of things. And that knowledge is just, it's so valuable. We do, and it's not just because we run surveys, but we do genuinely encourage use of third party. And look, you can get a bunch of different, I believe there's software on the market that you can use for surveys, which is still anonymous, different platforms you can use. Ideally, I believe that if you've got an open enough workplace and a good enough relationship, I would love to see surveys be not autonomous, anonymous, sorry, and not done by third party, because if your communication and relationship is that strong, you should be able to have, really good, robust feedback already. But I think in the real world, we need to understand that people aren't necessarily comfortable doing that. And I know for myself as a business owner and as a manager, I actually want the real feedback. I want to understand the good, the bad, the ugly. And I know that sometimes people feel more comfortable doing that in an anonymous fashion because then they don't feel like, it's a personal thing, or that it won't backfire on them, and all of those sorts of things. So we find that when we do, sorry, I've just got someone waiting in the, just had someone new join in. When we do that third party approach, we get better response rates. So team members are more likely to participate if they think that it is anonymous, or if they know that it is anonymous. And there's often a little bit more of that sort of curiosity and willingness in people to, well, let's just see what happens. Because the other thing that can happen if they see that it's a consultant that's been engaged to do the survey, is that they will sometimes go, right, we've given feedback before, it hasn't really worked, it's fallen a bit on deaf ears, but here's someone new now, and maybe if we give feedback again, it'll something will happen with it. The other reason is that openness. So when you've got an external party doing your survey, and that external party gathers the data, analyzes it, and just provides an independent report to management with summary of results, respondents are more likely to be open and honest with their answers because they feel safe in doing it. And the other thing that a third party should be able to give you is benchmark insights. So when you use a consultant who does other surveys across other businesses and industries, you want them to be able to benchmark to say, how are you going compared to others on these scales? Because really that helps to give some insight. So, for example, when we do these, we can tell our clients when, they see that their results on communication, for example, aren't as strong as some of the other areas, we can really easily say to them, communication is nearly always the lowest rated element in a survey. It's just what happens. It doesn't matter how much you communicate, people always will think that you can communicate better. So we know that if you were to map all the factors in the survey, communication is going to sit the lowest. Doesn't mean you ignore that result, but it means you understand that that is how people rate this stuff. Same thing as rate your remuneration, how satisfied you are with your remuneration. You can expect that to be dropped because very few people do go, no, I'm totally happy. A lot of people go, I'll rate it as, okay, because then maybe they'll do some pay reviews. Which human being is not going to, there's a lot of human beings that will think that way. So, but getting the benchmarks from a third party can be really useful. The way we like to see surveys done is a major one every 12 months and pulse surveys in between every 2 to 3 months. I know some companies that do it every month, but I feel like that's a bit of overload, both on employees to actually do the survey and on management to act on it, because you need time to stop and act in between. So the way we do our initial survey, the big one every year, we ask employees about vision. Do you understand the purpose and the values and the vision of the company? We ask about their perception of leadership, how supportive and approachive and effective it is. We ask about relationships in the workplace. What is the morale like? Do you have people who you consider to be good friends at work? Do you feel respected and valued in the workplace? We'll ask about some of the HR fundamentals, the groundwork stuff, the policies, and have you received training and those sorts of things. We'll ask about leveraging, are you in a role that utilises your skills? Have you been given training in your role? Do you get development? And then we'll also ask general engagement and satisfaction questions around, the how satisfied are you at work? I really like asking the question of how likely are you to recommend a friend to come and work here? From the perspective of, would you say this is a good employer and others should come and be here? So range of questions in that first one. Now, one of the questions in the survey should give you a net promoter score. So marketers know what net promoter score means, but if you're not in that boat, your net promoter score is basically a formula. It's a preset formula, and you can do the same thing for employees. So our question around, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you, gives you your net promoter score. It's a challenging score from the point of view of, you can see on the screen there, your employees will give you a rating from 1 to 10, 1 being not very good, 10 being awesome. Basically, the way the Net Promoter Score formula works is they say anything from 1 to 6 is a detractor. Anyone who's rated you a 7 or an 8, which normally you'd think, yep, that's all right. But 7s and 8s, they say, no, that person's passive. And anyone who gives you 9 and 10 is a promoter. And so the way to think about it is, as a customer, let's say, when you go into a store, if you get a really, really good experience, a 9 or a 10 experience, you do tell other people about it. If you get, yeah, good, it was okay, I was happy, I've got no complaints, you don't go and tell other people about it. They're your passives, they're your 7s and 8s. If you've had an experience where you're like, nah, you know what, that steak was cold or not really great, through to that was a real crap experience, that's when you're likely to tell people about it as well. So you are actively detracting from. So same thing with employees. If they are having a brilliant experience with you, they are telling their friends at barbecues, they are telling other people just how wonderful their workplace is. If they're having a satisfactory experience, that's not a bad thing, but they're certainly not promoting you. They're your passives. And if there's things that are tipping them down to 6 and below, they are probably out there saying, gosh, if there's something better out there, I'd have a look, or I really don't like working at my workplace. And so the formula then basically says, it ignores the passives and it says what percentage of your people were promoters and what percentage of your people were detractors. So promoters take away detractors gives you a score, a percentage score. So I think it depends a little bit on your industry, but for employee net promoter scores, anything from 0 to 30 is quite good. So keep in mind, 0 means you've got equal number of promoters as there is detractors. So anything from 0 to 30 is good, and 30 and above is really good. 50 plus is exceptional. So when we do surveys, we include that question in every single time that we do it, because that way you get to sort of watch how that's tracking. So the pulse surveys are the other component of that. And the pulse surveys are short 10 to 12 question style surveys, and they dive deeper into specific areas, and you can see those listed there. And so when you are able to dive a little bit deeper into those areas, it gives you more data, more information to know. And so some of the stuff that comes from the initial survey may well point towards, hey, we've got an issue with work-life balance, because that's part of the fundamental side of things. So it might mean that in a pulse survey, we ask more questions about that so that we can better understand what it is that people are seeing there. So that's how we would approach it. Big survey, pulse throughout the year, come back and do the big one again, so that you're constantly tracking how you're performing and you do have your finger on the pulse. The other thing on this is that feedback on feedback is just so important. How you handle this stuff. And this is the reason I was saying you need to have enough time between surveys. The worst thing we see companies do is run a big survey where they ask everyone to give them feedback and, let us know your thoughts. And we really, really want to hear it. And then no one ever hears anything again. The employees don't know even what the results were. And then they don't know what the actions are that come out of this. It's just, we've gone into businesses that have done that, and you've kind of got an uphill battle because the employees are going, yeah, we've done this and nothing happened. I don't think I'll bother again. So if you are going to build that sort of feedback culture, that upward feedback culture, you need to make sure that you are acting on it. And so when you do a survey in particular, we encourage businesses to make sure that they provide a summary of the feedback results back to people. Even if they're not great, that's okay. People need to see what it is. And then we encourage them, make sure you also include your action plan. So, as a management team, when you get feedback on your survey, you should be sitting down and going, what do we do with this? What are some of the actions that can come out of this? What are some of the little wins that show our people that we are instantly responding to and thinking about them? What are some of the longer term projects that we might say to them, hey, this idea's come out of this. It's 12 months away, but just know that we're working on it. You need to send that really clear message to your people that you are listening, you have heard it, you're going to make some stuff happen from it. It's also perfectly okay. You don't have to act on every piece of feedback. And so it's perfectly okay to have it that someone might put ideas in a survey that you go, yep, it's a good idea, but it's not practical for us for these reasons. Or we really like that, we're just not big enough to do it yet. That's definitely a future thing. It's also okay to do that and say to people, we've got a bunch of other ideas. We can only implement so many. These are the ones that we have chosen. The important bit for people is to know that it's been noticed and thought about at least. The other thing we have seen happen, which can be quite interesting, if employees have got a sense of sometimes the loud, unhappy people, they are the loudest in the workforce. And so they will be, causing dissent or trying to cause dissent. Other people won't disagree with them, which means that then there's this bit of a perception around, we've got really unhappy people. I've seen it happen where you go and you do a survey, an anonymous survey, and you discover that actually you don't have that many unhappy people. You've got maybe one or two who are making a lot of noise, but everyone else is actually happy and okay. And when you share those survey results back out, those people who are the noisy dissenters, let's call them, it can be a little bit of a wake up for them that, actually, that actually other people are happy. This workplace is okay. So it can be a really powerful tool in that way as well. Any questions from anyone on any of that? All right. Well, that is my content. So just a quick next steps on this, what's coming up in future. So 24th of November, I think that's next week, we've got our next Leading Teams workshop, Creating a High Performance Culture. So you can jump on our website if you are interested in attending that. There's you can go into a calendar or through our leadership category and look them up there. But you can register and pay to attend that one, Leading Teams Workshop. And then the other next big one coming up is the Group Strategic Planning Workshop, which is next year, February. So that's more at a business level than an individual level. But it's where we pull a number of small to medium businesses together into a room to do strategic planning. It's a 2-day workshop. And we do that because strategy is just so important. But we know that small businesses can't always afford to sort of grab a consultant for 2 days and go away and, do the big strategic planning retreat. So we do it as a group so that the cost is shared, and we also find that there's a lot of great idea generation, I suppose, when you're sitting in the room with other non-competing businesses and getting ideas from other industries as well. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, and also if you've got feedback on this, I've just been banging on about upward feedback. We love it. So if you've got feedback for us, please do send it through. Doesn't matter how you give it to us. You can give us a call. You can send us an email. You can do it on Google, however you like. But we really do like to get feedback on this. And that covers it. I told you I'd let you go a little bit early today. If anyone does have questions, please feel free to come off mute and ask.
No, thank you very much for the session today, Naomi.
No worries, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks
pretty
for
much
joining.
covered. Yeah, no questions. So,
And you guys do this upward feedback thing too, don't you?
we do. Yeah,
Or parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Cool. All right, I'll leave you to it. Enjoy your
All
day.
right. Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.